Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I'm excited today. After, it's been a month and a half, we have returning our very special guest, Richard McCuen. Now, Richard is a retired military guy. He's a retired police officer. He is an advisor to the Gardens of Hope 501c3 Therapeutic Horticulture Project. He's part of my Willow Creek Springs team and just an all-around great guy. When we left off, this was probably about 5-6 weeks ago, Richard, you recently lost your mom. You were in a house with a family nightmare dynamic of brother and sister trying to squabble over stupid crap. You're stuck in a unsolvable problem, and things weren't working out in Georgia the way that they might have. But holy cow, things turned around. And why don't you let's jump back to your process, because when we were last talking, you were you had run into some obstacles and things weren't working the way that you were wanting to. And we were talking about how you were dealing with that and letting some things go and surrendering yourself, to the highest good and figuring out where to push and where to let go. And then all of a sudden, some crazy cool stuff happened. Why don't you just take us right back to that spot?
Yeah, it was it's definitely been a journey. It was something I would admit that I wasn't prepared for in any way, mentally or physically, to losing, not just a family member, but the one that gave birth to you, your mom's.
Right.
And during Christmas time, it was real difficult to deal with just that alone, and then with the part of the healing process of having to deal with the leftover of someone's life can get complicated, and a lot of emotions can get heightened, and you could say things that you don't really mean. And I just got to a point to where, for me to walk away healthy, and not only in my own skin, but with my surroundings, I just had to let everything go. And sometimes that's the best way to deal with it, is to just, tell yourself you're okay, and just, just leave it to God. And
Exactly.
I feel that because I didn't try to control my own suffering, I I prevailed in the end, and with where I'm at now, I have a beautiful woman in my life that I can't say enough, about her. Uh, a new place to live, a house, everything. And it was like everything that I came here to build and do and experience with my mom, I thought was gone whenever, she was as well.
Right.
And once I realized that, I just need to relax, not be in control, and just let things work its way out. And the outcome of just what was given to me instead of given back to me was just speechless. And I feel that now others can have and experience the same as what I had, is to healing, is be able to let go of things that, because certain things can be reminders of that pain.
Sure.
And it can block someone's feelings, or shape their emotion, and guide them in a different direction. So
Well, I think one of the things that happens, like, life is full of challenges, it's full of struggles, it's full of pain and suffering and all of those things. It's also full of joys and great things. But the negative things generally impact us worse than the positive thing. Like you can forget a good time, but it's pretty hard to forget a bad time, right? You know, you always, something reminds you, like, don't go back there. But I think that's wired into our genetics. You know, when we were running around, 100,000 years ago, trying to catch our food and not get eaten by other things, all the bad things reminded us, don't go over there, you're going to get your ass eaten, right? And the good things were important too, like go over there, there's water around that corner, or there's a berry bush that you can get some good food at. But when that tiger comes running out of the tree, you're like, holy shit, I am never going near that again. And I think that the thing that's, it's a weird dynamic, because like, we're here, mortals, humans, we only know what we know, we see what we see, and we don't have that point of view that like is eternal. Like we can't see the beginning from the end, or we can't see where you're going, in years. All you can see is what I can see in front of me. But when we go through these things, whether it's a death or a relationship or an injury or a disease, and we come out of it, even though it's like those worst times in the world, somehow we remember how we got out of it. And then all of a sudden you get promoted, like, like when you're in the military, right? So you go through boot camp, you go through all these struggles and hurdles, and then you become a soldier and you get your first rank. And whether it's E1 or whatever the hell they call it, you're that guy. But then you go through more obstacles and challenges, and then you complete tasks or whatever is the requirement. And next thing you know, they promote you and they give you a little more responsibility. They give you a different title. They give you a little sticker on your little pin on your uniform. And now you're an E2, but you also get a little more money. You get a little more drop in your retirement. You get a little more respect. A different guy has to salute you now. And it's a different experience. But I think in life, we get the same sort of thing. Like, you go through life and you never suffered a loss, and then you look at somebody that's suffering a loss and you're like, oh, poor person, and you tap them on the head and you go, I want you to feel better, but I don't know anything about what you're going through. And so I can offer you my hug, and just say, well, I hope you feel better, right? But all of a sudden you go through a loss or suffer something, an injury or whatever it is, and you see that person that's got the thing that you have, and then it's a whole nother conversation. And now it's like, hey man, I know what you're going through. And number one, you can share that conversation about your suffering, because for some reason, like with humans, we want to hear about somebody who's doing worse than us. I don't know why it is, but when somebody comes and tells you, oh, I'm doing so great, like, unless you know them and already want, them to do well, you're like, okay, that's great. I'm glad you're doing good, right? I mean, like, it's our natural aversion, like, you don't need me. Why are you talking to me? You're doing great. Yeah. And, but then when you have somebody come and you see, and they're suffering, and you're like, well, I've been through that. I know where you're at. It makes you almost want to help them, because there's hope for them. Like, you've been through it. There's another side where they're still stuck in it. You're in that place where I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this. I don't know how I'm gonna survive. I don't know how, this is gonna work out. And then, so not only are they like now willing to listen to you because you have that in common, right? And so, what's happening, like with Gardens of Hope, I'm not a veteran. I've struggled and struggled and struggled to work with veterans. Well, finally I got you, and I got Laura, and I got Ronnie, and I got more. Now that I've got a few veterans, all of a sudden veterans are coming up to me and they're saying, hey, I like what you're doing over there. I like this thing. But if it wasn't for you guys, nobody wants to hear from me, because I'm not one of you. I didn't go through what you went through. I don't have that connection, but now I do, because I've got you guys, to rely on to say, hey, we do know where you're at. We do know what you're going through, and we do want to help you. And they're like, oh, you're like us. Okay, cool. And I think that's the thing, is you got that gift of being able to now share, this loss, this experience that you went with, and now all of a sudden you can go, hey, and not only that experience, but see, you've got all these other experiences. You've healed yourself from horrible injuries. You've overcome these crazy obstacles, but because of all the other stuff that you got on your back, a lot of times some people are like, oh man, you're a lot, dude. I don't know. Like some of us people that have so much that we carry on our back, you spook people off because they just think like, well, that's just not normal. What are you doing carrying all that crap on your back?
Well, like you were talking about veterans, even like me being a veteran, like one of the ways that it helped me deal with like the passing of my mom was, I mean, it, you get stuck in that thought, like, like you're alone now, like totally alone, and which is correct, but it just depends on how you look at it. And what made me feel more comfortable was I took myself back, like I did with my injury, and put myself back in military mindset. And a lot of like veterans, military, they get out of the military and then they're stuck with that shock and awe, like, what am I supposed to do? And they don't like know how to take care of themselves. But one
Right.
thing they don't understand is that 4 years or 8 years or 20-year career, whatever the time served, was they were taught tools that can help them in situations, in the future.
Right.
It was training, and that's basically just like our parents. They're training us for life, so that we
Exactly.
can live, it on our own. And that makes me go back to thinking like, well, yeah, I miss my mom. I wish she was here, you know, but I'm glad that she's in a better place, and that she's given me the tools that and love that I need to sustain my journey while I'm here.
Exactly.
So it lessened the pain a little bit. Um, I mean, pain's going to be pain, but I think for you to be a better person or to achieve anything, successful that you want in life, it's not always a fast road that's easy. You've got to take the good before the bad before the good.
Well, and
And
pain
that's
is
what teaches you to be better. Is it's not looked at as a mistake, that you didn't do something right. You just didn't do something to fill in that gap you know, and that's where life is that gap. We try to put all our eggs and baskets in that little gap, and we don't see the big picture of the plan of our life,
right.
under God.
Mhm.
We get trapped in man's version of what we're supposed to be.
Right.
And I think that like trusting God, it's not just like everybody has faith in God, but
Not
you have
everybody.
you have to
Some
really
people don't have any faith in anything.
yeah, you have to really push that faith to the next level to really understand what we are as human beings.
Sure.
And that's just the basic line is you're going to have to go through something that's going to test you. And knowing that, don't try to control it, because that's where you get lost, and it puts up a different mindset, and then you get further away from, actually where you're supposed to be. And I wouldn't have been able to find that Faith Street and find all the gifts that, and presence that God had for me all
Right.
this time, because I keep pushing and and bear hugging the pain.
Right.
Oh, this was taken or this was taken. But once I just let go of that pain and I didn't care what was taken, it was like it all was given back to me, but tenfold.
Right.
So I just, you're left with like, well, how did I deserve this, or how this happened? It's just it was meant to be. And because you didn't control it with your
Well,
own ego, you know,
and there's a couple of different things. So, like when you said, how did this happen? The reality is it happened because you made a lot of choices. And it's like
right
people think
choices.
that choices are only the things you do, but choices are also the things you don't do. And even deciding not to make a choice is a choice. When you say, well, I don't have to choose, somebody will come up to you and say, well, you have to choose this or this. And you might say, no, I don't. I'm not going to subscribe to your version of my reality. And I can say, I'm not going to choose either of those, but maybe I'll choose something you didn't offer me. Or maybe you just say, I'm not going to choose anything right now. That's what I choose. I choose nothing. And I think that, like, with our mindset, we have our thoughts, our hopes, our dreams, like, I want, I don't want, I wish, I'm afraid, all these things that are coming to our mind. And those are, the emotions, right? Those are the fears and the desires and the hungers and thirsts and all those things. Those are the drives. But it's the actual choice that changes your course. And
Yeah.
so when you're going through your process and you're going, this is happening and I don't want, like when we were talking before, you were telling me about these experiences with your family and how you just didn't want to keep going through these experiences anymore. When somebody's like not treating you with respect, and when somebody is focusing on negative things all the time, and you're like, I don't want that. Even with people that I know and love, sometimes they get all negative on me and I'm just like, man, I don't want this. I love you, but man, I do not want to just, be fielding shit bombs all day long. I just don't want it. And so I'll find a way to redirect that, go, well, you know what, I'm just going to love you right now, I'm going to walk away. And instead of jumping into a confrontation or a challenge or thing. And I think it's really important to recognize, like, you and I've been working together now for about a year of working ourselves together through these podcasts and conversations, and you working on you and me working on me and you helping me and I am helping you, and just being part of a team. And in that year, I've watched your growth maybe in a way that you haven't seen. Like,
Huh.
because I see what I see. I'm way over here, right? So I'm listening to your conversation when we first got started. You were up in Fresno, California, and going through your one set of struggles that you and I were both going through. And then we decided, well, I don't need that struggle anymore. Let's go and figure out a way to work together. So we did. And then I don't have that struggle anymore. I got different struggles, but I don't have that one. And next thing you know, we're talking more. And then all of a sudden, this thing with your mom, she gets sick, and you had to leave. You had this giant, crazy calamity that happened all at once. One minute you're like, well, I'm going to do this and that. I got all these choices. Next thing you're like, I got to get out. And I got to move all my shit and go across the country. And I was like, wow. And you just hunkered down and did it. You made choices. And then you were able to be there for your mom in her last month of her life. What a great gift. And I think that's where the pain, like, pain is a tool. Pain isn't just bad. And pain is our friend in a weird way. And it's a weird friend, but like, pain keeps you from getting hurt. Like, pain tells you, hey, that hurts. Don't keep doing that. Right. Oh, you're going to break something. Right. I mean, that's what pain does. At least it tells you, like, if you're in your workout and you're, doing your thing, and pain says, okay, well, it tells you one thing first. It says, well, you're starting to use those muscles. Okay, cool. There's your first layer of pain. Then you get another layer of pain, says, oh, you're starting to push yourself. You're going to get some growth now. There's another layer of pain. But when you get to know it, you're like, oh yeah, that's that pain. I can push through that. I know what's on the other side of it. Then finally you get to a pain right before your bone snaps, and it's saying, you might want to stop right now. And you're like, oh, I hear you. I think I'll stop right now. And you avoid a broken bone. Right. I mean, but the other side of it, I don't know if you remember that old Johnny Cash song, and I don't remember exactly the words on it, but it was something to the effect of, I hurt myself today just so that I could feel the pain. And
I know what you're talking about.
I think what happens, and I'm sorry, Johnny, if I butchered your lyrics. I know you're quite a poet, and But anyways, the point is, I think what happens in our lives as we are growing along, I think we find ways to dull the pain and we miss out on life.
Yeah.
We do substances, alcohol and drugs. We do bad habits. We stare at our little boxes. We just get lost. You find ways to, lose yourself, right? And what do? You don't feel anything anymore after a while. What do you think all these, horrible crimes and things that people do, they just don't feel anything. They don't care. They don't
Yeah.
feel a value of your life or your well-being. They're like, screw you, I'm gonna hurt you bad, and I don't care. But I think that that's the thing, that pain is an actual something real that you can actually feel.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think when you feel pain, it can connect you in a real way to the joy that was there too. And so, like, when you are missing your mom and you feel that pain in your heart, and we all know, well, if we've all lost somebody that we care about, I've lost lots of people, and I can go back and feel that lump and that pain anytime I want. It's there waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that it has is it can connect you to something positive. Like, when you feel that loss or that pain, that lump in your throat, that heart, just heaviness. And then all of a sudden you look back and you might see an image of your mom smiling at you. Or you
Yeah.
probably never would have gotten that if you wouldn't have been feeling that pain. Like, you wouldn't have tuned into that good spot, or maybe
Yeah.
noticed that butterfly landing on a flower over there. And as you were thinking about that thing, you're like, oh, wow, it's like my mom just sent that down to say, hey, you're going to be all right. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing that pain does, though, is it pushes us, like it's an amplifier, to things that, like, we get numb to, and we don't, what happens when a relationship goes south? Usually one just stops caring about the other one. You stop thinking about, you stop remembering that you're human and that you have feelings too. Instead, you just get upset over that trash liner you forgot to leave in the trash can. You're like, what the
Yeah.
hell?
I was like, good morning to you too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the other side of it is, without pain, you don't know what joy is.
No.
If all you, like the spoiled little kid that just gets everything they want, do they ever end up being good people? No, they end up being total shits,
Yeah.
generally, because they don't know suffering at all. And so they're just like, well, everything's good and wonderful. So if I feel this way all the time, so should you. And there's no empathy, there's no sympathy. But when you feel a little suffering, like, people go camping, right? And they're like, always, they say the food is so good when you're camping. Well, it's
Mhm.
not the food. It's the fact that you get hungry. You're out there running around in the mountains feeling, burning energy that you didn't really stop and think about, that you don't normally do. You're getting up early, staying up late. You're laughing and running and swimming and doing all these things that you don't normally do. Well, sure, you get a hell of an appetite going on. Food never tastes so good as when you're hungry, though, right?
Yeah.
If you never got hungry, it would always be okay,
I
and
know. And I think, like, I'm glad that I put myself through the pain that I needed to go through, not that was put onto me,
right,
but separating that so that I could actually think and be able to work my own problems and solutions. And I mean, I simply look at it, maybe it's because I I don't have my ego pushing me like I used
right,
to.
yeah,
Is I mean, death can't be that bad, It, I mean, they're no longer feeling any more pain, and
right,
I know, based on my incident whenever I was with the sheriffs that put me out, it was a calming feeling. I didn't. It was like I knew this was it. Like I was being told, you're not going home, and I was just okay. You know. So I mean, if life is so good, how can like that be so bad? you
No,
know?
spot on. And frankly, if you've been with anybody as they've taken their last breath, which I've been with a bunch of people, it's never unpleasant. Like it's a beautiful moment. Like I was with my grandmother, I was with my father, I was with a couple of my friends when they took their last breath. And it was a joy. It was a blessing for me to be with them, you know, and I never did I get a sense of, oh shit, it's gonna be horrible. Like, no, it was just very peaceful and quiet and you know, okay, there it goes into something else.
Yep, I went, coming from, Fresno, moving back home, being around family, it's been a long time, the Marine Corps and everything else. So I was actually anxious to, catch up with my mom and
Yeah.
that, you know, uh, her passing suddenly, it was like I was left telling my own self, make it, flirting with my own pain and misery was that, that got taken away from me.
Right.
I didn't get to spend time with her, like, and then that creates even more pain. But
Right.
something spun in my mind and was like, you were, I was missing the whole reason I was pulled home was to spend time with her. Yeah. In her last moments. And the
Exactly. You
most
got that
powerful thing.
opportunity. That's frankly what it was. It was an opportunity.
Yeah, and in that opportunity, I realized the true meaning of why I was called home, and to spend that time with my mom was because she helped me. She brought me into this world and helped me take my first breath.
Hmm.
So I was brought home to help her take her last. And
Absolutely.
man, that was just like now I can smile and no tears, and it's just joy that I was given that gift,
Right.
to help someone because she was there for me whenever I was transitioning into this world and the comfort she gave me,
Right.
the same as she was given going home,
Hmm.
So I think that was, I feel good about that. And I don't know. I think that's just that is my Christmas from now on,
I
is
love it.
I got the present that I was asking for, and it sent my mom home, So
Right.
I think that that's, the better outcome is, and everything that I have right now, I know that she's helped align,
Exactly.
knows that I was already going to have to deal with what I was going to deal with and
Yep.
had put things in place, and that's what I'm talking about. You can have faith or you can have a deeper faith.
Hmm.
And to get that deeper faith, you have to struggle within your own with your own pain,
Right.
and you do it alone because God's with you,
Mhm.
and if you can have that faith, then there's pretty much nothing that,
There's nothing
like
you
I used
can't
to look
do.
at money as riches,
Right.
and to me we need money, but it's not about the millions,
Freedom in relationships. I tell you, that's where riches lie. Freedom in
yeah.
relationships. When you got a good relationship and you've got freedom to move around as you see fit, that's as wealthy as you can be. Well, listen, Richard, I am out of time once again, and just so glad that this is happening to you and for you and with you. And you know, it's great. You know, a big part of this podcast is sharing people's experience, and it's not only about the pain and suffering, which there's plenty of. It's really great to watch some growth and positive experience and realizing that it's never generally just this one thing that you did. You know, we've been talking about all these uh, tools that we're working with, and a lot of it is just trying and not giving up and being there for each other. Just you know, being good humans a little bit. So. On that note, I am so grateful that we're having this. Hopefully, we'll be seeing a lot more of you again. I know, you know, you got quite a little cult following. A lot of people like to hear what you have to say. And I'm just really grateful that you're part of our team. And I wanted to share a little bit of joy with you. So congratulations and on your new beginnings. And I'm looking forward to hear how everything moves forward in North Carolina.
Heck yeah, we're growing our own food now and everything. We got our own micro farm going, and we're like in South Carolina and where we're at, and we got good things, coming, to helping more people, through the company and that. And that's, you know, where we're at now. So just because you're going through something, you know, don't worry about the struggle. Just have the faith and know that everything's going to work out, and you'll be better on the other side of that thinking. You know, everything you want is on the other side of how you think. So
That is
one of the
truer
things.
words have never been spoken. Well, Richard, we are absolutely at a hard deadline now. I got to get rolling, but thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for joining us on the Healthy Living Podcast.
See ya.